Jaya Radha Madhava Sundara Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Shri Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Sattva's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitagora Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. As Vaishnavi, I know we're not supposed to request anything from Krishna except devotional service, but I have to admit right now I have a humble request that he allows me to offer this class without going into a coughing fit, because I'm having this problem coughing recently, and once I start, it just doesn't stop. I've taken whatever I can to suppress it, but... So word by word and translation. Drumbaya unto the trees. Krudyamana, being very angry. Te, they, the 10 sons of Prachini Bari. Tapadipita Manyafaha, whose anger was inflamed because of long austerities. Mukhataha, from the mouth. Vayum, wind. Agnim, fire. Cha, and. Shaju, Shashriju, they created. Tat, these forests. Didakshaya, and with the desire to burn. Drume vyaha kodayamanaste. Drume vyaha kodayamanaste. Drume vyaha kodayamanaste. Tapodipita manayavaha. Tapodipita manayavaha. Tapodipita manayavaha. Mukato vayumagnim cha. Mukato vayumagnim cha. Mukato vayumagnim cha. Sashvirusta didakshaya. Sashvirusta didakshaya. Sashvirusta didakshaya. Dumebhya kuringamanaste. Tapodipta manyavaha. Ukato vayumagnim cha. Shijasta dividakshaya. Ladies. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Because of having undergone long austerities in the water, the potatoes were very angry at the trees. Desiring to burn them to ashes, they generated wind and fire from their mouths. Purport. Here the word tapodipita manasyavaha indicates that persons who have undergone severe austerity, tapasya, are endowed with great mystic power, as evinced by the potatoes who created fire and wind from their mouths. Although devotees undergo severe tapasya, however, they are vimanyavaha sadavaha, which means they are never angry. They are always decorated with good qualities. As stated in the Bhagavatam 3:25-21, Titikshava karunikaha surdam sarvadahinam ajata satrava santa shadava sadhu bhusanaha. A sadhu, a devotee, is never angry. Actually, the real feature of devotees who undergo tapasya, austerity, is forgiveness. Although a Vaishnava has sufficient power in tapasya, he does not become angry when put into difficulty. If one undergoes tapasya but does not become a Vaishnava, however, one does not develop good qualities. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Ravana also performed great austerities, but they did so to demonstrate their demoniac tendencies. Vaishnavas must meet many opponents while preaching the glories of the Lord, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommends that they not become angry while preaching. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this formula: Chinadapi sunishena torarapi sahishuna manina maranena kitanya shadahari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Those engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord should be humbler than the grass and more tolerant than a tree. Then they can preach the glories of the Lord without difficulty. Let me repeat the verse. Because of having undergone long austerities in the water, the Prachetas were very angry at the trees. Desiring to burn them to ashes, they generated wind and fire from their mouths. Om Agyantamirandasya Janana Sakavaya Chakchumritamrena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Vaskatude Satarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Everyone, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Of course, as a visitor, one should not begin to speak without offering appreciation and glorification to the host and the members of the family of the host, all of the devotees. So my first visit to Ujjain was on the occasion of the grand opening. And of course, at that time, this temple had just barely finished up. And all the subsequent buildings were not yet standing. There were plots of land, and we were told, here will be this, here will be that. And across the street, it reminded me of Krishna Balaram Mandir. Now you go to Vrindavan, you just see urban development. Peacocks and cows and monkeys inhabited the place. And across the street was just open field, and you could walk through that field all the way to the Mathura Road. That was long ago. In 1973, Srila Prabhupada told us that when we were in India, and as first comers, we first came in 1970 at the order of His Divine Grace, who sent out a letter addressed to several devotees. Actually, there were 10 typed in names, including myself and my husband. And then, in Prabhupada's own hand, he put number 11 and baby Saraswati, meaning my young daughter. And he invited us to come to India to form the World Sankirtan Party. he had this vision of World Sankirtan Party, just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had that vision, when will that day be that I will see the Americans and the Russians and the Germans and the Indians, everybody chanting Haribol, Haribol together in the street. And Srila Prabhupada was a vehicle that fulfilled that vision. So many temples have come up since his passage. We'll be observing, it's hard to say celebrating, observing with great reverence, and at the same time, some enthusiasm for the 40th year departure of His Divine Grace, very soon, a couple of weeks. And so much has changed. Apparently, it looks like it's changed. This temple wasn't here when he left the planet. Many of you were not even born yet. And a famous quote, which is these books, meaning Srila Prabhupada's books, will be the law books for the next 10,000 years. There has to be some reference in life. We're just living life willy-nilly, means this, that, whatever, no plan, no strategic plan, no life plan. You know, result is generally chaos, chaotic. And now, in this age of Kali Yuga, even with plans, there's chaos, because that is a symptom of the age of Kali Yuga. But out of his deep compassion, Srila Prabhupada has left his teaching, left his instructions, and even though it's very sad on one hand to see to see Vrindavan become so overly developed, like when you come off the Pantura Road to enter into Bhaktivedanta Marg, you would expect to see, if you're going to see something, a beautiful, maybe Krishna temple or a statue of Krishna, but oh no, great, big, huge, gigantic image of deity, image of Durga on her tiger, with all of her weapons, not even, she's just like has skulls around her neck, Of course, we can understand she is supposed to be protecting the holy Dham from the intrusion of the materialist. But even that is kind of complicated, because as you go down the street that once was the forest of Braj, you can't even find. Normally you turn off that main road, you pull over immediately, and you just get out of the car and roll in the dust of Braj. But actually now you kind of have to roll in the cement of Braj, the asphalt of Braj, the bricks of Braj. Well, it's not even like they bring in dirt, they bring in sand and cement to put their bricks and mortar together, so they just cover up Braj. We could not have imagined it. When he told us that, so then he told us in 73, I think. So in the future, the government will come and take over the holy dhams. They'll assume control. And they'll develop tourism by removing the presiding deities. And we're listening to that, and we're thinking, that could never happen here in Vrindavan. That could never happen. And we always imagined it would just always be the same. That's what timelessness is, it would always be the same. And the Jamuna River would always be there, and you could always go down and take a sip. And of course she's there, but you just didn't imagine, there would be such gross development that the forest would become a forest of concrete buildings, and that the peacocks would be banished. You have to really go a long ways outside of Vrindavan to find peacocks. But Prabhupada said New Vrindavan is a replica of Vrindavan. He said it is the same. So I'm very proud to say that we have lots of peacocks in New Vrindavan, so if you want to see peacocks, please come to New Vrindavan. So the monkey's habitat has been destroyed, so now they're, if somebody aggresses you, you're going to fight back, it's just a natural thing. They're spirit souls, they're persons, they've been aggressed, they're fighting back. They've been attacked, they're being attacked, they're attacking back. And my sympathy is on the side of the monkeys, because instead of trees, there's high-rises. Not just high-rises, but and come in with their great big huge vehicles and drive fast, where you once could peacefully stroll twice a month and do Brajmandal Prikrama. I stay in an ashram called Kirkland Ashram, and it's right across the street. It's on the marg, it's on Prikrama marg, but you have to cross the street to go to Krishna Balaram temple. And some days it's so congested with traffic, you can't get across the street safely. And you remember Prabhupada saying, they'll come in, they'll take, they'll remove Krishna from, they'll develop the tourism, and you're thinking, oh my God, it happened. I don't know how he knew all these things, but he knew them. Tvamna sandarshito datra dustaram nar shatir sattam kalim satvaharam pumsam karnadaranavaram. We think we have met your goodness, Srila Prabhupada, by the will of providence, just so we may accept you as captain of the ship for those who desire to cross over the river, to cross over the ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all good qualities of a human being. It was mentioned that I joined the Hare Krishna movement in 1967. Actually, in 66, by the grace of a devotee, a friend of ours named Michael and his girlfriend Jan, they went to New York City, and then they met a Swami, and then their life changed, and as their life changed, our life also changed, because Mike and Jan became Janaki and Mukunda, among the first to be initiated, the first to be married by His Divine Grace. And they came back to New York, to the West Coast where we were, actually living on a mountaintop, surrounded by trees, protected trees by the government. It was a huge, massive reserve, what they call a national forest. And our duty there, Shamsundar's duty, to climb up a tall tower and keep his eyes open, looking at the trees all day long in case there should be a fire. And then immediately you would have to notify there's a fire. And the people who knew how to put out fires would have come. But after seeing the change in our friends who came to the mountaintop for a surprise visit, and seeing the change in our friends, we also became convinced that we also wanted to meet this Swami. Formerly there had been other Swamis coming, people that claimed to have some knowledge, and they would speak in such a way you could not understand what they were saying or what they meant. And if you asked a question, their answer would be even more confusing. It means they didn't know anything. The term, the flowery words of the Vedas, but they were just flowery words without even the Vedas for the most part. Very obscure people. So we had met these kind of Swamis, and not so much interest. But when we saw the change in our friends, when they showed up at our little cabin. We were away for the day, and we came back, and they were already there. They were inside the cabin, and Jan was there. She was cooking something. Mike was there. And so one of the first shocking things was that they had gotten married. They had written to us, we met a Swami and we're going to get married. So that was pretty shocking, because why was it shocking? Well, we were like kind of more or less members of the hippie sampradaya. So in that mood, these hippie mood, there were no rules and regulations, basically, but things like marriage were just looked down upon. Nobody did that, you know. So for them to accept the sacred and holy vows of marriage was quite a dramatic change. And then we had our first prasadam, because Janaki had prepared simple meal, rice, chapati, dal. I'd watched her making these balls and we only had a wood stove, and they would make these balls, roll them out, they'd puff up. It was really fascinating. I had no idea what they were going to be, you know, and how good they would be. But during that first prasadam meal, Mike said, oh, by the way, we have new names. So now we're thinking, okay, you met a Swami, and you got married, and now you have new names. And I want to show you something very special. So it's books. The Swami came from India with a trunk of books. So after dinner was my first introduction to Srimad-Bhagavatam. And I jokingly say the hippie sampradaya, but they had their own ways of doing or not doing things. One of the better qualities was actually they were seekers of truth. At least they were trying to find out what is truth. And the topic of God was always a discussion, and there was different viewpoints on that one. It was like, well, maybe I'm God and you're God, you're God. And I didn't feel too comfortable with being God, because I thought I had had several experiences in my youth, and even up until that time. At least I was convinced there was something beyond my own existence. I understood I wasn't this body. But just that alone, without knowing who I was, didn't really bring me anywhere. So these, conflicting concepts. Oh yeah, the best one, God is dead. There used to be God, now he's dead. There was even a Time magazine, Comfort Time or Newsweek, one of the big magazines had a whole issue, God is dead, and it was right on the cover in the 60s. So when he brought out the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the first one, of course it was first canto in 3 parts. And the beautiful cover, the beautiful illustrated cover that was showing, for my eyes, here was this blue fellow with 4 arms lying on a snake with a flower coming out of his belly, and on top of the flower was a fellow with 4 heads. And helmets on each head. I mean, how fantastic could that be? And so I was looking at it, and but still there was some connection with human-like. And I said to Mukunda, what is it? Who is this? And very soberly he said, this is God. And I immediately accepted that, because if there was God, he just couldn't be another fellow forehead. So I just on that alone I accepted. But when I opened the book, and this was another point, here was a book, here was something of substance. Because these other people who would come, they would just say things what didn't make sense, and they never, ever referenced anything. It was just, bubbles of words coming out of their heads, coming out of their mouth. So here was this book, and on top of that it had the original language, a word-by-word transliteration, the translation, and a purport. That was really substantial. Here was somebody that I might be able to listen to, And I kept noticing one particular phrase, which was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I kept seeing that phrase over and over again. And it was so fascinating, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Mukunda told me this was God, this four-armed person lying on a snake. I was happy to know there were actually real answers, and that there were books of real knowledge, and that this Swami, he was presenting the truth, coming from a very ancient tradition. He wasn't making things up. Therefore, we were looking forward to meeting him. And then Mukunda told us, well, we're on our way to San Francisco. We're going to start a temple. So I asked a very profound question. I asked, what's a temple? And, but he said, well, it's a storefront painted white. Because at that point, there was only 26 2nd Avenue, and it was a former storefront, and they had painted it white. You know, but that satisfied me. And so we were up there on this mountain by government contract, and the contract said we had to remain there till the first snowfall. And this was somewhere around the end of September. So he said, you know, definitely as soon as it snows, we'll come down there. And we all went to sleep that night. There wasn't any convenient bathroom there, just there was a whole forest and a stream. Whatever you had to do to drink, to take a bath, to cleanse yourself, you just went out to the forest and you would take water from that stream. It was not polluted yet. The next morning, call of nature, I opened the door and there was snow. On the mountaintop there was snow. And even I saw the footprints of a mountain lion. I'd heard they were there, but I never really saw them. I just saw the footprints. Actually, about less than a month ago, I was coming back into New Vrindavan. It was 7:05 in the morning, just before Srila Prabhupada's really big, and it looked like a cat, except it was so big with a big long tail and a black spot on the end. And then I remembered devotees saying that there was some bobcats around, so I thought, well, maybe this is a bobcat, except bobcat is these kind of cats. They have a short tail. This guy had a long tail. And also the bobcats were just a little larger than a house cat, and this thing was humongous. So I went to my cabin and I Googled bobcat just to make sure it wasn't a bobcat, and no, it wasn't. And then I put West Virginia mountain lion, and whoa, there it was, you know. I saw my first mountain lion. It was actually kind of sad, because the reason that happened is because we have a lot of, huge wells and fracking, which means they force chemicals deep within the earth, even a mile down. And they come with these gigantic, huge earth-moving machines, like maybe from there to here, and they cut through the forest, just cut down those trees. Like the Prashedas, they came out, hot air and fire, like at least it was, one-on-one or something, but they just come with these machines and knock them, and it goes for miles and miles, just getting them out of the way so that they can put up the gas pipes. And underneath, simultaneously, way down deep in the earth, this coal company has this equally huge machine that's going through and scraping the insides of the earth to extract every little tiny drop of coal. And it's not without consequence. It causes big fissures, big cracks in the earth. And if you happen to have a house, which many of the devotees do, the foundation of your house gets cracked. The walls are cracked, the floors are cracked. And the coal company goes, no problem. They told us in advance, this will happen. And we'll fix it, don't worry. I mean, these are big cracks. You can put your arm in it and you can't come to the bottom because it's coming so far down. So the modern world is, living up to the name of Kali Yuga. So seeing that book, seeing this word, Supreme Personality of Godhead, was the beginning of my conviction and my association with His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. And these books, they'll never be old, they'll never be stale. They'll always be with us for the next 10,000 years. We may not, hopefully we won't be around, but you know, we may be coming back. I mean, I'm now got, you know, a certifiable old person. I look around and I'm checking people out. Maybe they'll be my next parent. You know, I see these nice grihasta couples, and maybe this will be my next parent. Anyway. But it was, Srila Prabhupada has given us the beautiful gift of the Absolute Truth in the form of the Bhagavatam and in the form of himself, the book Bhagavatam, and the person Bhagavat. What time is this supposed to stop? So, what time did I start? Huh? 15, okay. So, these people here, these prachetas, had been deep within the water for 10,000 years of meditation. And when they come out, they see the trees everywhere. I happen to have a lot of sympathy for trees, like I have a little sympathy for the monkeys because they're, getting a rough deal. And I see the trees just whacked down, tossed aside. There's one part in the Bhagavatam that actually tells you the bona fide reasons for to cut trees down. I think there were 5, but I remember 3, which is shelter, to build habitat, to clear field for agriculture, and of course for fuel. There's a couple more, but I can't remember what they are. But certainly, the way it is nowadays, the way we just mow down the trees because they happen in the way. And it's interesting, these people, these boys, these prachetas, there's a devotee, he's actually a Prabhupada disciple, a godbrother, he resides in New Vrindavan, and he was giving the job of painting all the guest cabins one day, a few years back. And there was a beautiful, like a tree that gave beautiful scented flowers once a year. And the pujaris would just wait for that tree to bloom, and then they would offer the beautiful flowers to Radha Vrindavan Chandra. And also the leaves were beautiful. Well, he was painting, and I came home one day, because I live across from that place. I saw the tree was gone. And he's there with his paintbrush, and I just like, what happened? It was in my way. And, I mean, I don't know, I just really wanted to attack him. I was just so upset by that behavior, but, then you read about these prachetas, they came out, they were angry, but their anger was a little different. His anger was based on sense gratification, it was in his way. And the pracheta, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they took this time to 10,000 years, which at that time wasn't such a big deal. 10,000 years wasn't a big deal. And when they came out, the future rulers, they see all the overgrown trees. And in fact, there are trees, they're kind of like weeds. They're not really valuable trees. They don't even have normal bark. You can't even use their bark for fuel, and they grow very fast. Unlike a valuable tree, Srila Prabhupada says a valuable tree, and he gives like a macadamia nut tree. He said the nut from macadamia, it's like very valuable. It takes a long time to fructify, and the trees take a long time to become established. Prabhupada was very caring about the trees. That famous story in Juhu, where in order to get the property secured, we had to have an access road, and there were some palm trees there. And they were right where the road had to be. And Prabhupada was away, and he came back. Here's how observant Srila Prabhupada is. How many of you would be so observant? He knew how many palm trees there were on Hare Krishna land, Juhu. And he came back, and he noticed 2 were missing. What happened? And they told him, and it's not good. And there was another one due to go, and Prabhupada said, I've been to Iran. And in Iran, I see trees in the middle of the road. They just let them be, and they take the road around the tree. So then that gave the devotees heart, and they went and argued on behalf of this remaining tree which was the first Gurukul. And there was a tree that was leaning on the building, so it had been there forever. But the devotees thought maybe if there's a storm, if it gets hit by lightning, it might collapse and crash into the building, and now the building has kids, so they decided to cut that tree down. And they didn't consult Srila Prabhupada, and when he came out and saw what had happened, there was anger. That they had unnecessarily, just on the matter of speculation, there was other measures they could have taken, cut down a tree. Oh. So these Prachetas said, they'd had their life in the water, and they had been given a mantra by Lord Shiva, this Shiva Gita. They had chanted this mantra, and the mantra was in glorification. Although it was from Shiva, it was in glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it was through that mantra from Lord Shiva that they were actually gaining their, you could say, their liberation. That they actually became devotees of Krishna. So you can understand that their anger was not of an ordinary type of anger. It's said that one who offers prayers, it's in the 4th canto, 31st chapter, that one who offers prayers to Lord Shiva are composed by Lord Shiva, that prayers composed by Shiva in glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, both morning and evening, will be given benedictions by the Lord to fulfill their desires and attain good intelligence. And of course, good intelligence means to understand Krishna, who you are, what is your relationship with him. And even by remembering the Prachetas, it's said in one of the verses, even by remembering these Prachetas, every day one will become friendly with their brothers and all other living beings. That's quite, this is the Lord speaking, And then in one of the purports, it's discussing how a good tree, if there's a good tree in the forest, a fragrant tree, that fragrance will fill the whole forest with fragrance. Just like if there's a good son, will make the whole family famous. Lord Krishna made the Yadu dynasty famous. Srila Prabhupada, the good son, he has made Krishna famous all over the world. Anyways, this anger, is a topic nowadays because anger is so quick to come. How does it come? Because you contemplate the objects of the senses, you develop attachment for them, and then from attachment, lust develops, and then when lust is not satisfied, and even if it's satisfied, it's not satisfied, then what happens? Anger arises. So if one isn't Krishna conscious, then one is subjected to material desires when contemplating the object of the senses. So the senses require engagement. And if they're engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, then that type of engagement becomes the perfection of one's existence. You'll get out of this complex puzzle of material existence. So a devotee uses anger only in Krishna service. And Srila Prabhupada comments on this point that a devotee is generally very humble and meek, and he's reluctant to pick a quarrel with anyone, nor does he envy anyone. However, a pure devotee immediately becomes fiery with anger when he sees that Lord Vishnu or his devotees are insulted. So, there's the key for the proper use of anger. And then Prabhupada is commenting on from third canto that the younger brother of desire is anger. So you have your desire, you contemplate, you don't get it, or you do get it either way, it doesn't work out, and then the younger brother shows up in the form of anger. That happens. So a liberated person only becomes angry when restricted in discharging their duties of serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the common person becomes angry when their senses are not being gratified. You have some plan for sense gratification, it doesn't happen, you become angry. Of course, we have then Prabhupada is talking in this purport about, it's not a good thing to become angry while preaching, although certainly there's occasion, and of course there was the occasion of Jagai and Madai, and Lord Nityananda, he didn't become angry, but Lord Chaitanya became angry. He couldn't accept to see his devotee defiled. And in our own movement, in our own time, we've had examples. Dasi from New Vrindavan was serving in Africa, in Liberia, in a place called Monrovia, and there was this really terrible warlord. But then he came somehow or other. You can't trust people that are infected with power and anger and lust. So he came to the temple, and he told, there was two women, Hadini and another lady. He told them, go inside, and he told the men to line up. And he started to execute them, and she came out and she saw that, and she became so angry. She went right towards the executioners. You can't kill devotees. They killed her too. I'm showing, that anger to see the devotees being killed. She had no thought for herself. Even myself, one time, I used to have a more fiery nature. Sometimes it shows up now. But I was in Mumbai, and so this one he was a big guy, big belly, He came afterwards backstage, and he was criticizing Srila Prabhupada to us, to his devotees, to his disciples. And suddenly I just lost it. Belly. Even I was surprised. But Giriraj Swami was present at that time, and he was really delighted. He to this day remembers that, How can you hear, except that. Govinda Dasi was in Hawaii, and there was one of these flowery word gurus who said a lot but said nothing. And she could see these followers were just totally misled. And she became angry to hear these false words of a foolish so-called guru. And then the followers said, well, you're not being very, you're not displaying love. And she goes, is it loving to watch you being cheated and say nothing? She reported that to Prabhupada, and he was so pleased with her. But best of all was when the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada, especially when confronted by the Mayavadis, he was just not Mr. Love and Light. Like nowadays, you see this, I'm sending you love and light. What the heck is this love and light? I'm sending love and light, source of light, because he created all, the sun and the moon, they bring light, they're Krishna's creation. But Srila Prabhupada, he wasn't no Mr. Love and Light Guru. He clearly defended his beloved Lord Krishna from the foolish words of these false gurus. Well, one time, and we were just first there with our World Sankirtan program, and we went to a big program on Chowpatty Beach. It was a outdoor program, and it was packed up with Mayavadi speakers. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, starts to speak. But before he spoke, he started out with kirtan. And, we'd been sitting there falling asleep. As soon as we heard the kartals, they were speaking Hindi. We couldn't understand it anyway, but we could understand some words, and we knew it wasn't good. So we were actually kind of feeling protected by the fact we didn't speak Hindi. And then Prabhupada hit the kartals, and suddenly it was kirtan, and we were just up, and we started dancing on the stage, and then we just started jumping off the stage right into the crowd and pulling them into the kirtan, and they loved it, you know. Like they were falling asleep too, and suddenly the holy name was just everywhere. So when we came back the next night, somewhat of a different mood, we were in a different mood, and they made Srila Prabhupada wait until the end to speak. So all these Mayavadi blah blah, and then to the very end, and they did that because they wanted to have a grand finale. This was their little plan, you know. But we weren't in that same mood that night. You know, we stood up, we were dancing, but they wanted us to go into the, and they started actually physically pulling us, pulling our saris, pulling on men's dhotis. And when Prabhupada saw that, he jumped up. He didn't miss a beat. He just took his kartals and right, you know, stopping it in the face of the organizer to cause him to stop this behavior, you know. That incident's mentioned in the Lilamri, but they don't tell that part where Prabhupada, you know, used his anger to stop that behavior. And then one other example, hammers. So you may not know what a deprogrammer is, but at a certain time, there were these real monsters, real demoniac people. I mean, sometimes we use that word demoniac or demon kind of loosely, but in this case, these people were bona fide demoniac persons. And brainwash them, to take them away from Krishna consciousness. And it was really intense. And so now that exactly what they were saying about us, we were like counteracting, but we took them to court. So it was a big legal challenge. And Srila Prabhupada was chosen in Vrindavan. It was in 76. And he goes, they're now feeling the weight of this movement. You know, that formerly they were just thinking, these people, they're come and go. But now they see we're staying. Now we have set fire. It will go on, and it cannot be stopped. You can bring big fire engine, fire brigades, but that fire cannot be stopped. It will act. The brainwashed books, meaning his books are already there. His book distribution, 76 book distribution was in full swing. Our first class campaign is book distribution, you know. This is by propaganda, you cannot suppress the truth. You cannot suppress fire by propaganda. Now we have to become strong to defend. The fighting has become acute, but if you stick to the regulative principles, Krishna will give us all strength. So they're afraid that a different culture is coming over their culture, which was true. That's what they were afraid of. But he quoted Param Dristanivartate, that that's natural. If someone finds something better, he's going to give up the lower thing. He'll give it up. How can he not? And then he ended the letter, it's a fight. Do not be afraid. You know? So that was transcendental anger. And what to speak, even subsequently, there's so many fights that went on, that glorious 10 or 11 year fight to secure Bhaktivedanta Manor. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, in the matter of preaching, if you don't disturb their minds, these people are out, if you don't disturb your minds, you're not preaching. It's our business to disturb their minds, because their minds are already disturbed by Maya. Well, our business is to, give them Krishna consciousness. So, yes, the principle is to be more humble than a braided glass. We don't go out looking for trouble, but we don't back down if it comes. If we're being attacked, if our principles are being attacked, these deprogrammers would try to force-feed devotees meat, fish, eggs, alcohol. Well, it's terrible. We have to defend. That's our business. At the same time, we have to be humble. Actually, Arjuna exhibited perfect humility on the battlefield as he was killing, because we know his nature was, no, I don't want to do this. His refusal, however, was based on sense gratification. I won't be happy if I have to kill my relative, you know. But Krishna engaged him in his service. Krishna came to annihilate the miscreants, and he's engaging here. This is my plan. This is why I'm here, and you can help me. And Arjuna accepted to help Krishna, to serve Krishna by killing. And that's humility. You know. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. So, well, the question was how when they came out of the water and they saw that the trees have overtaken, and they weren't all, you know, wonderful fruit-bearing trees or nut-bearing trees or flowering trees or wood trees. Agriculture is disturbed. If there's no agriculture, how will you eat? So they were, you know, they were upset about that. How can one experience a devotional atmosphere of Vrindavan Dham being situated geographically far away? Yeah. By reading Krishna book. Yeah. But do you think Prabhupada wrote, you know, he's actually, there's such an astounding thing about Srila Prabhupada's writings, because actually he says, actually I didn't write these books. Whenever I would sit to write, Krishna came, and he indicated on his shoulder, and he would dictate to me what to write, and I would just write what Krishna was telling me. So, I mean, it's really astounding when you consider these purports. It's Krishna. It's Krishna, and he used Prabhupada as his transfer via media. Yeah. Because he understood we were so dull-headed as this Kali was going on. We're going to need some, we'll need some highlighting, illuminating. And because Prabhupada was a soul surrendered unto Krishna, because he'd given up all these external dharmas and was a soul surrendered to Krishna, Krishna was using him. Yeah. And very wonderful. So anyway, read Krishna book. One of my god sisters asked Srila Prabhupada, how can I know you better? She was a book distributor, so she was very rarely around when Prabhupada came. But he returned before she got out, and she was kind of stuck there. So as she was kind of leaving, she paused to make obeisances, and she looked up and Srila Prabhupada, how can I know you better? 3 words, read Krishna book. So if you want to know Vrindavan, if you want to know Srila Prabhupada, read Krishna book, especially during this month of Kartik. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mother Malati, for such a wonderful class, and especially for has been credited. The credit goes to ISKCON to revive deity worship all over the world. Especially even in India, it was becoming extinct. And how did deity worship start in ISKCON? That is also a very, very interesting thing. Lord Jagannath or Krishna always likes to give credit to his devotees. So Lord Jagannath personally chose Mother Malati to be the instrument to come to Srila Prabhupada. So Mother Malati actually brought first Jagannath deities to Srila Prabhupada.
Jagannath Swami ki jai. And I have to say, Jagannath Swami is so ecstatic here. It's like beautiful. Hare Krishna.
So we thank Mother Malati by one time loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Her Grace Mother Malati ki jai. His Divine Grace Shila Abhay Charnarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.